Who is Daniel Boy? Wow. I think Daniel Boy is a lot of things. I'm best known as a fashion person. You know, people know me as a fashion director. I do fashion shows. I curate fashion events. I work with fashion designers and I mentor them. But I think I'm also a creative curator. I think Daniel Boy is a person who loves surrounding himself with creative people, be it from theatre or music or furniture design or architecture, interior. And I like to curate everybody's talents and put them all together either in a fashion week or in an exhibition. So I think Daniel Boy is a lover of all creative people and all things creative. I would like to see myself as a cheerleader of fashion. Not just of Singapore fashion or not just of Asian fashion, but of great fashion. I get very excited when I see great design. I get very excited when I see great fashion. And I try to champion these designers. I see myself as, in my role as a show producer, I'm a storyteller. Like in theatre, when you have a playwright and you have a producer and a director. So the playwright is a fashion designer. They give me the script, which is their clothes. And I produce the show. I tell the story that they want to tell through a show. I cast the right models, actors, my actors are models, and I put together their story on the runway. If I'm doing a photo shoot, it's the same thing. I'm creating a story that the designer wants to tell. If I'm curating a pop-up, I find out what the message of the pop-up is, and I try to tell that story in the pop-up so that the minute you walk in, you know exactly what the furniture designers, interior designers, fashion designers are trying to tell. So I see myself as a fashion storyteller. And it's a great role. I love it. And every single job is different. I can work with the same designers every season. Every season, they tell a new story. It's like they write a new book every season. You know, for example, Frederick Lee. I can work with Frederick Lee 5 times in a year, and every collection is different. It's like I'm working with a new designer each time. One moment, I could be telling the story of the Asian hill tribes. Another season, I could be telling a story of birds of paradise. And I think that's really exciting. The Singapore fashion scene has evolved from the day I started. I started in the 80s, and I was lucky to have started in the 80s because that was the height of Singapore fashion. That was when Singapore fashion designers were treated like gods. I wasn't even working in fashion, and I heard of Thomas Wee, I heard of Tan Yung, I heard of David Wang, Esther Tay, and I made a pilgrimage. It's not even a visit, it's a pilgrimage to their stores. I'll stand outside because I was so afraid to go in, and I want to know all about Singapore designers. It was such a proud moment to wear Singapore designers. Is there a Singapore fashion scene? Well, yes and no. I think there is a very, very small sector of the population that support Singapore designers, that go out and constantly push for Singapore talent. But the rest of Singapore need to understand or need to embrace the creativity in Singapore. I wasn't sure if I had a story to tell. To me, fashion is a passion, but fashion is also a job. I do this because I love it. I don't do this because it's glamorous. I don't do this because I want to attend Fashion Week and sit in the front rows. It's a perk. But I do this because I truly love it. I do this because I love the designers. I love what I do. And I wanted to make sure that I had a story to tell. And as time progressed, I realized that my story is also the story of Singapore fashion. I started observing Singapore fashion as a young kid in the 70s. I used to accompany my mother to Robinson's where she would buy McCall's patterns and Vogue patterns to make into dresses. All the early Singapore stores, throughout the 80s when I would stand outside the stores as a groupie, all the way till the late 80s and early 90s when I started my career. And I decided, fine, I will write a book about my life, but my book will also be a tribute to Singapore fashion.